Well, we just came through the checkpoint and it's utterly humiliating. This is their home and they have to go through that every single day.
We've all heard from the media about Israeli checkpoints, which are really an attempt to keep Israelis alive by preventing radicalized Palestinian terrorists from murdering Israeli civilians. And there's no doubt that Arab communities living in Palestinian Authority-run cities suffer as a direct result of these barbaric terror attacks by so-called freedom fighters who only seem to make matters worse.
For many Palestinians, this infamous Israeli military checkpoint has long been a symbol of the occupation.
Isa Amrou shows us what it's like for Palestinians to navigate around the city of Hebron.
Christina holds an American passport. The fact that she also holds a Palestinian ID card means that Palestinian travel restrictions apply to her.
We've also heard about a seemingly endless flow of Jewish blood caused by Palestinian terror attacks and massacres throughout Jerusalem.
East Jerusalem, where at least 7 people, including a 15-year-old boy, have been killed in a shooting near a synagogue.
Is recovering from a hail of bullets that injured 8 people, including 5 Americans. Among the injured, a pregnant woman shot in the stomach.
We've heard from governments calling for diversity in Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, a city of such importance to people of faith around the world, must be a place of coexistence.
Palestinians and Israelis equally deserve to live safely and securely. And you'll hear that from clearly Secretary Blinken, as you just mentioned, his commitment that the president has to a 2-state solution.
But there are checkpoints that are conveniently left out of the media narrative. Checkpoints that children and families' lives depend on. Where Jewish children living amongst Arabs in predominantly Arab neighborhoods must be escorted to school, and adults must be escorted to work by armed guards and armored vehicles. In these forgotten checkpoints, families are afraid to leave their homes in fear for their lives simply because they are Jewish and living in the quote-unquote wrong side of town. In this episode of Tribe Journal, we take a look at the checkpoints at the front door. At Tribe Journal, we strive to tell the untold stories about Israel, about the people on the ground. Tribe Journal is a grassroots community of independent video journalists, and members like you can help us grow. Please visit tribejournal.org and consider becoming a member, sponsoring an episode, or even partnering with us by co-sponsoring an upcoming series. We can no longer be bystanders in the media wars. We must actively tell the truth and tell the untold stories about Israel, even the stories that we may not want to hear. Thank you in advance for your partnership in our very important mission and helping us bring projects like these to fruition.
Can you believe that there is a place here in Israel where if an Arab sells to a Jew, he's given the death penalty? And an Arab middleman can be tortured, given a life sentence, and loses his Muslim status. Of course, this is not an Israeli law. This is a Muslim edict, recognized and upheld by the Palestinian Authority, the Waqf, Hamas. This is not Nazi Germany. This is in Israel, Jerusalem today. If an Arab sells to a Jew, he is killed. We are indeed fighting a battle over Jerusalem today, and there are some people that think that the War of Independence finished in 1948. We're still fighting that battle today, a battle of survival and a battle also over Jerusalem. Our Terek doesn't believe in Judenrein areas, in places where Jews, neighbourhoods where Jews are forbidden to live and live quietly, safely and in peace. We believe that Jews have a right to live side by side with Muslims and Christians in every and any single neighborhood in the heart of Jerusalem.
Atuka Kohanim Israel is an NGO that helps facilitate legal real estate deals between Jews and Arabs in and around the Old City, regardless of the unethical and murderous Muslim fatwa decrees forbidding such sales by Arabs to Jews. We asked Daniel Luria, its executive director, to show us around and introduce us to some of the families living in the old Yemenite village, aka Silwan.
For the Muslim world, this is referred to as Silwan. This is a very tense neighborhood, Molotov cocktails, concrete blocks. Even a washing machine one time slamming down on the vehicle as the families were driving home. So for us, this is Kfar HaTeimanim, a success story unparalleled in the resettlements of this land of Israel. Yemenite Jews who came in 1882 settled in this area on the slopes of the Mount of Olives overlooking the Temple Mount, the city of David. No doubt they saw the kings and the prophets walking in the area. At its peak, 150 Yemenite Jewish families living in the area. Yes, Arabs did join and lived in the area. Unfortunately, our neighborhood was decimated in the pogroms of the 20s and the 30s, both inside the old city and here in Kfar HaTeimanim. The British, who were not able to stem the tide of these horrific pogroms and riots, took out the Jews who were living here with the promise that those refugees should be able to return to their homes, not to Silwan, but to Kfar HaTeimanim, also known as Kfar HaShiloach. The year 2004, Ateret Kohanim here in Israel managed to bring back the first Jewish families here in the Shiloach.
Hi, my name is Ariel Shemen. I live in Kfar HaTeimanim. My family was among one of the first pioneers to move here. This is my family's neighborhood. This is my people's neighborhood. 140 years ago, my family came here to Kfar HaTeimanim, Kfar HaShiloach. After generations where my grandparents, my great-grandparents prayed to be here in Jerusalem, I had the privilege to be able to live here, next to the Temple Mount, next to the old city, to look at the walls of Nehemiah. The privilege to be part of what's going on here is something that's indescribable. For me, there isn't a question why I live here. The question is, why shouldn't I live here?
The process of moving back into these neighborhoods that Jews were forced to evacuate in the Arab pogroms of the 1920s and the 1930s has not been without its challenges. We caught up with some of the earliest Jewish residents to hear how the neighborhood and the neighbors' attitudes have changed over the past few decades.
Hi, my name is Mira Rabinovich, and I live in Kfar HaTeimanim Bashiloach. We live here almost 16 years. At the beginning, it was a bit easier because we were little families, and the Arabs were still a bit more calm with us living here. At Atuka, one of the operations in Gaza, the village had changed its face. The Arabs here became very, very hostile. Baruch Hashem, we have 9 children. People say, isn't it crazy? Isn't it too much? And I say hard. Most people, if you ask them what's hard, what's difficult in their lives, are the things that they didn't choose. We don't have to live here. Each and every one of the 35 families that live here can move out tomorrow if they want to. And each and every one of us came here because we chose to, because we want to.
My name is Shira Tanami. We live here over 17 years. The most significant difference is that now there are more Jewish people walking here, more Jewish people living here, more kids playing in the playground. Every day has its complications. It's not easy to get home and to go to work. Each day has its story. You think you're gonna come at one time and something happens, they throw rocks, they close the road, the vehicle is damaged. Every day has their own story, but we continue day after day. We started as 9 families, now we're over 35, and every new family helps Jews walking in the streets and new roads, the presence of more and more Jews. That's what makes the difference. Now my kids have many friends to play with.
The bigger and stronger we become in this neighborhood, in the Shiloach, it gives us a feeling that mission is becoming more and more completed. There's lots to be done. We're 35 families in a huge, hostile Arab village, but still, 35 families is almost 200 Jews living here, walking through the streets. Just this week, we had a new family in this building, down below, with 2 kids, and I told her, you know, you coming here, it's not just another family, 4 Jews living here. It's more children running about in the streets of the Shiloach. It's another Jewish mom that are doing הפרשת חלה every week in the Shiloach. It's mamash לחזור הביתה. That's how we feel.
course, many local Arab neighbors would prefer an Arab-only neighborhood, while some welcome the diversity. However, getting them to speak about this important topic on camera is virtually impossible. Nearly all of the Arabs I spoke with confirmed the severe ramifications of selling land to a Jew. There are many upsides for local Arabs when neighborhoods become more diverse, but the process is not simple at all. To understand how the community changes, we walked to predominantly Arab neighborhoods in the old city of Jerusalem near Lions Gate to visit with Jewish residents who legally reclaimed a property that had been lost during the pogroms and violence in the 1930s and 1940s. Gabriel Tauber and Ben Packer explain.
We're at a very strategic intersection. We have an entrance to the Temple Mount over here, entrance to the neighborhood over here, entrance to the old city from the Lions Gate in front of us. This is where the Israeli soldiers entered in 1967, the Six-Day War. First Jewish force to enter the old city in over 2,000 years. And this is the Via Dolorosa. The Christians from all over the world come. In terms of world history, we're a pretty significant place.
My name is Gabriel Tauber, sitting here with Ben Packer.
I had the merit to be one of the first people to come into this compound when it was redeemed. The soldiers came through in 1967 to the Lions Gate, and they immediately turned left to the Temple Mount. But what about to the right? Nobody went to the right. And as a matter of fact, if you tried to go to the right, the police would stop you for many years. This is where the Crusaders came through and massacred the Jews 1,000 years ago. And now we're back. Not only did the Jewish people connected to this place start going there, also the police started going there. Now you have tourists going there. There are cameras here now. It adds a feeling of security, a feeling of significance. We feel secure, we feel protected, and we walk here confidently. It's a major game changer for Jewish people, for Jerusalem. It's a big deal.
My name's Shaul Geblikian. I live here in the Old City for about 8-9 years. My first 2 years were here in this property. 80-90 years ago, a family lived here and got chased out because their neighbors were getting killed. I think we need to stand up for not just ourselves, but for those people back then. There was 5 families living here at first. This was owned by a family in the 1920s or so, and they ended up leaving during the riots. And 80-something years later, a great-granddaughter ended up coming and proving that this was their property, and it was registered in the government. So they removed the majority of the families that were living here. People didn't like coming to this area because it was dangerous. I had no idea that this was a no-go zone. I heard there's a house that people are scared to live in. I said, I love the old city. I'd love to live here. I'll live there. I'm not scared. And those Jewish letters carved in that stone, if you don't believe in the deed, just look at the letters carved in the stone. It was about a 5-minute walk to the next Jewish home, which usually doesn't sound so bad, but when you're walking through what was considered the worst neighborhood in the old city, I definitely had to look over my shoulder more often than anywhere else. But it also ended up being very special. You and I know God exists. We can see him through many things, but it's a lot clearer when there's miracles going on. 20 people throwing rocks at you and all of them missing. Or even more so, when that rock hits you and it doesn't do any damage. You go to the hospital, they have the stone there. Yeah, they have the police report. And they resend you to CAT scans because nothing's showing up. I remember I had the doctor come in. He goes, nothing shows up on the CAT scan. I go, wow, miracle. He goes, no, we have the police report. We have the rock. It must be a mistake in the CAT scan. Go do another one. Wow. He came back again with the results. He goes, okay, you're right. It's a miracle. Go home. He goes, can I give you some painkillers? I go, no, I'm fine. He goes, no, I'm giving you painkillers. I don't care if you take them or not. Just take the prescription. You had probably 15 to 20, if not more, people arrested, at least that I know, and put in jail. For example, my front door got set on fire 9 times. You have the people that threw the Molotov cocktail. You had another guy that used to live here, got hit in the head with a cinder block. For every police report that I might have done against somebody, there was another 20 against me. This was a different way that they were trying to do it. So to the police at first, especially with no cameras here, that's what they thought. The door that was here got burnt 9 times. This is now destroyed. There used to be a hidden camera here. That's actually how they caught these guys burning the door. I personally had Arab neighbors here come and say, we are happy that you're living here. They say, we don't like the problem makers either, but what can we do? I've had old ladies here that were friendly come with a broken tooth and say, you know, I'm sorry, I can't say hi to you anymore, or I can't help you anymore.
Why can't they say hi?
They'd get hit by these other bad guys, yeah. There are good people. They get overshadowed by the bad, including the guys who burnt this door 9 times. See the water hose here. We used to have a water hose connected so you actually put out the fire. Easier to go back to bed. It wasn't until later with camera footage the truth came out. And that changed the tide. The police understood that this truly was just trying to find a place to live and to rebuild a home that was taken. And they were very helpful. As you can see on your walk here, you had street lights, you had actually a redone street, cameras, things that really changed this neighborhood. Say one of these neighbors, doesn't dislike me, but a person down the street who's hateful of Jews does. So he's throwing rocks at me, but it might hit the neighbor's kid. That neighbor, because of that fact, hates me. So once that guy's gone, they don't have to hate me anymore. The most repeated phrase in the Torah, not pasuk, not word, is actually not to be scared, not to fear. And I think just like how a parent comes and tells a child something that's not just important to the parent, but difficult for the child, I think God does the same for us. To tell us not to be scared is a very difficult thing. So I think God's repeating it for us to work on, and it can really change one's life to get to that level of not being scared of anything but God, because God, everything's in His control.
כרגע זה לא בשביל כולם. לא כי זה מאוד מסוכן, אלא כי זה מאוד קשה. סוף שבוע. חוץ מהבית שגרים פה, אז היהודים הקרובים יותר שגרים אלינו זה 5 דקות הליכה. המכולת הקרובה היא 15 שעה הליכה, האוטו שאפשר להחנות הוא 10 דקות הליכה. זה פשוט לא לכל אחד, כאילו לא לכל אחד זה מתאים שהאוטו שלו יהיה 10 דקות מהבית. וכאילו שהוא הולך לעשות קניות עם האוטו, נגיד ברמי לוי, אז הוא לא יכול להביא את האוטו, להחנות בחנייה ולהביא. זה לא בשביל כל אחד, צריך...
אבל האמת שזה האתגר, כמה שזה נשמע שהאתגר הוא ביטחוני, האתגר זה ללכת, לבוא, להביא קניות, מחברה, זה באמת הקושי.
אין בעיות עם הערבים?
הם לא אוהבים אותנו, אבל גם מרגישים שמדינת ישראל שולטת פה, גם הם יודעים את זה.
בעיקר הנוער הם אלה שיותר יעשו את הבלגן. דברים בסוף רוצים לקום בבוקר, הם רוצים לשפן בלילה, הם רוצים ללכת לעבודה, הם רוצים שיהיה להם כסף, והם צריכים לעשות בלגנים, אז גם הם יפסידו, הם מבינים את זה. העברית שלהם לא מאז, בעיקר ערבית, קצת אנגלית.
דיברתם ערבית? אולי שנה הבאה.
אולי.
למה לא?
עובדים על זה.
כן. In addition to the many Jewish residents integrating like these cities on Bab Chuta Street in Jerusalem's Old City, Ateret Kohanim has helped some similarly minded families do the same. How is it living amongst the Arabs? Is it challenging? Is it difficult?
I don't want my kids to have the feeling that we're walking here any different than we were walking in the middle of Jerusalem. We try to live normally with the Arabs, but many of them, especially the youngsters, education, they give them a lot of poison.
The bottom line is we're in the wild Middle East. And in the Middle East, it is not like sitting down between Australia and New Zealand having a border battle. This is not America, Canada. This is not Switzerland. We are in the middle of the Middle East. When you show strength and strength of conviction, the other side understands exactly. Oslo was, I'm sorry, I apologize, I will step backwards, I will give land for peace, I will hand away my mother, my mother-in-law, my land, my heritage, just for the sake of some peace. It was ridiculous. And what happened as a result of it? Thousands of missiles, tens of thousands of missiles, greater hatred, because the Arabs smell weakness, and then you're eaten up for breakfast. So there's a price to pay if you're not showing strength and strength of conviction. When you have Border Patrol Police and the Ministry of Infrastructure and Housing giving extra security.
Naming streets.
Names of streets. All of those things is one word, sovereignty. And that's the most important thing that the government is doing, even though there may be question marks about the method of being defensive versus offensive. The concept of sovereignty is very important for the government. And thank God we're seeing that on a daily basis. So beyond the physical presence, beyond 1,000 Jews living in the old Jewish quarter, there is also Jewish sovereignty, Israeli sovereignty, that we also bring with us when we live in these areas in and around the old city. Many of the Arabs in Jerusalem refused to accept the Israeli government and sovereignty. They don't vote like they could theoretically in the local elections. They don't utilize their power because the second they recognize the municipality, the second they start writing letters, you're accepting the Israeli authority, which many of them don't want to do because there's enormous pressure from the PA and Hamas and the world not to accept Israeli sovereignty. So as a result of that, it's possible that they haven't had some of their services, and maybe it's possible that some of the municipalities in the past and some municipal government authorities haven't invested the way they should. But we see that changing in a very, very big way. The government is understanding that if you want to hold on to Jerusalem and keep it united, you need to show that you are a sovereign body and you're investing in every neighborhood in Jerusalem.
20 to 30 years ago, the jury was still out on a two-state solution. However, today it has become glaringly obvious that the Palestinian Authority and Hamas are fighting a war against Israel. After decades of defense against rockets and foot soldiers from the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, Israel is approaching an inflection point on how to deal with a failed two-state solution while maintaining defensible borders. Perhaps settlers like these, who are often referred to as the crazy ones, offer a different way forward. A way that may not give Arabs the dream state that the world had promised to its Arab leaders, but could provide countless benefits to the good and innocent people who simply seek a better life for themselves and their children. Tribe Journal is a grassroots digital community that is able to tell the untold stories of Israel because of members like you. If you're not yet a member, please consider joining our paid membership by visiting tribejournal.org/join. Thank you in advance.